Alright everybody, wanted to do just a quick video on pistol crossbows. Obviously you all know what pistol crossbows are by now. They're these sort of little handheld, they're meant to be £80 draw weight, but they're actually not, they're a lot less than that. So they have names like the Tomcat and the Cobra, but sort of they're all the same sort of thing. There's a couple of other models, there's like the £50 ones which aren't as good because they have a different cocking mechanism and they're generally very weak construction. I don't rate them at all, just because when I was shooting one once it fell apart. It was very dangerous, you know, to use or another person nearby. But these ones are quite solidly built, the ones they call the Cobras or the Tomcats, whatever else. Sort of the fake wood, they've got metal and sort of alloys on there, you know, good. Whereas sort of those £50 ones are just awful in my opinion, too cheap and plasticky, and when you've got something as dangerous as a crossbow, they're not all that great. But what I want to talk about is how good are they for survival, because I've had these about 5 years now, over 5 years for this one here, which I put the red dot sight on. These are new string, as you can see there, it's frayed, but it works still. So I think I have a pretty good idea about how well these work, because a lot of people think these are really good survival tools, but I don't think they are, in all honesty. They have some things going for them, but they also don't. So what is good with a pistol crossbow is obviously its compact size compared to a full-size crossbow. But the problem is they only produce about 3 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, you know, when the bolt's about here, just about to leave. So that's not good at all, that's really low. Obviously, if a bolt's got a sharp point, it can penetrate quite well. Tumbo 1984, if you haven't watched his videos, watch his stuff, he does a lot of good stuff. The armor-piercing bolt he made works very well, but again, that's only, you know, compared to what power you can get from an armor-piercing bolt on a full-size crossbow, it's nothing. So you have to have a very well optimised bolt to make use of that low foot-pound of energy. A lot of the plastic ones are just too inaccurate. With these crossbows you can, let's put this one to the side, you can increase the power by moving the actual bow section here forwards. The closer that bow is to the front there, then you've got more power. You can either put a cut-off little bow behind it or sort of more bits of metal. That increases the draw weight. It will increase the accuracy a bit and the power, but also wear the string out faster. So you've got that to consider. Now, I'll say this, I've said this a lot of times and I'll say it again. What I think works really well is to get about £105 draw weight on a full-size crossbow, or £120 on a full-size crossbow draw weight. And because you've got the bigger bow span, now this is where these aren't very good, is the bow span. As much as you think this might be compact, how bows work is the draw length and the width of the prod, or like the actual bow. That's what gives a bow its power. Obviously the resistance is another factor, the draw weight, but if you had two bows of the same draw weight, but one of the bows was a longer bow width and you drew it back further, that would be the more powerful and accurate bow. Obviously having a smaller bow means that you get more draw weight because of how, you know, much force is needed to pull it back, but it's, you know, doesn't have much long range power, if that makes sense. It's a bit like if you think of a car. If you've got two cars, both have very similar brake horsepower, but one car's got a lot more torque and it's a lighter car, that car's going to go faster. There's a lot more factors than just simply draw weight with bows and crossbows. And that's one of the other myths, you know, with medieval bows, where people think some of the medieval bows went to stupidly high draw weights, they must be better than modern crossbows. No, they weren't, because the materials used weren't very good, and the bow spans are often quite short. So that's why the longbow was better. But getting back to these, what you can get from these, if you wanted a crossbow for survival reasons, you could get a lot better with a sort of, you know, full-size crossbow. You could cut it down, you could have a very short stock on it. You could take the prod off if you're cocking it against your chest or whatever. But the fact is that if you had, say, £100 draw weight on a full-size crossbow, even if you cut down some of the bow, that had the full-size, you know, bow width and length, draw length, power stroke, if you cut it down like that and used it against one of these, you'll get far more accuracy and power than you do with these. Interesting enough, my full-size £40 crossbow produces the same amount of muzzle energy, or muzzle velocity I should say, as this, about 140 feet per second, whereas that produces a lot more foot-pounds of energy because it's shooting a bigger bolt. So if it can get the same, power, same actual speed out of a bigger bolt, that's producing a lot more power, especially when you consider it's better stabilised because it's a bigger bolt, and that this is supposedly 80 pounds draw weight, and that's only 40 pounds draw weight. That gets 15 foot-pounds of energy, whereas this only gets about 3 foot-pounds, so as you can tell it's, 5 times stronger. So yeah, as for a survival thing, no, I think you could do a lot better than a pistol crossbow. If you live in a country where they're not restricted, get an actual pistol with a lot of ammo, or a little takedown to 22 caliber rifle would be best, something like a Ruger 1022, or one of the others little, very compact 22 rifles. As for over here in the UK, a full power, well, as in 12 foot-pounds or less, 2-2 air rifle is a lot better than one of these in terms of accuracy and pellet types, because with the problem with these pistol crossbows is, by default, you can't get very good bolts for them. You can get the aluminium bolts, or you can get the plasticky ones, but they're not like good carbon fibre bolts like a big crossbow. So that's my thoughts on it. It might have some use, but there's a lot of other better things you could use for using a pistol crossbow for survival, not what you could get from, one of these things. They're fun to shoot in the garden, but I think for a survival scenario, this sort of situation's quite limited, one of these.